Hi, this is Roy Worley. Welcome to the interview show that brings on guests from all walks of life. Yeah, it's here that they tell their stories and delve a little deeper into their lives to see what got them where they are. So grab a drink, have a seat, and relax, because this is the Leo Effect.
When was the last time a short movie shook your emotions to the core? When was the last time a short movie caused you to rethink everything you stood for? When was the last time a short movie made you proud to be an American? When was the last time you felt the emotion to stand up and cheer after a short movie? The new short movie, I've Got Your Six, written and directed by Bill Foster, one of the industry's newest and fastest climbing directors, will answer all of those questions. Rarely has there been so much packed into a short movie that when you leave, you'll feel more proud of our American military veterans. A movie that was cast only with American military veterans will have you on the edge of your seat, cheering for our veterans and what makes America great. I've Got Your Six will be hitting the film festival scene soon. Be prepared to drop what you're doing and go see this powerful movie when it comes to your area. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Leo Effects. Today I am joined by a special guest. I've been waiting for a while to talk to him. We had a couple little hiccups here and there, but we got it all squared away. He's here to join me tonight. He's my first ever solely podcast guest, and I'm super, super happy about that because I've never done it before. And this is probably going to go terribly. But please allow me to introduce Jim, the podcast Sherpa from Too Many Podcasts. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Ray? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So I kind of already gave away a bunch of the details on you, but what is it? Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast?
Sure. I mean, initially it started, if you hear the intro of the show, it's the podcast about podcasts. So, and I really started the first number of months interviewing people who had podcasts, of course, and then I came across other people that were being recommended. In that time, I'd spoken to a model and a millionaire in Australia. So I was kind of getting different perspectives about things. They all had ties into social media. So then I kind of expanded it to podcasters and people with a social media presence. And then since probably the last 4 or 5 months, I've been doing people from the entertainment field as well. And when I do those interviews, I call that the Sherpa screening room.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's clever. That's awesome. I like it. What was it overall that made you decide to start podcasting? Like what was the formulation that created a podcast about podcasts?
Oh, sure. Before I even was into doing this or even thinking about doing this, I'm a big music fan. I like listening to different types of stuff, and I'm older, so I like a lot of the stuff from the 70s and the 80s. I have like tons of useless knowledge on 80s music. And after a while, I was having a hard time finding new stuff to listen to and really get excited about. And was listening to, music apps on my phone. And then I saw some things that were saying that they were playing podcasts. And I said, well, I've heard of these. I didn't really know what exactly they were. And I just downloaded a few and I really got into it. And, a lot of different types of podcasts too. There's really not one genre that I really stick with. Mm-hmm. But after a while, I was like, well, this is actually a good way to pass some time. Like, I could probably do this because I saw there was a podcast app that you could download. And I started really simple, just talking to people on my phone. But then I realized, well, I have a computer. I could get a microphone and just kind of hook it up. It's very bare bones and very organic, I guess, not highly produced at all. Mm-hmm. And, I just kind of pick up things in like the year that I've been doing the show. So I just make it a little bit more slicker, and then the audience gradually builds up too. And I try and make it sound nicer for them. But I still want to kind of keep my original vision.
Yeah.
With the show.
Awesome.
I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah. Where did the name, the podcast Sherpa, come from?
Oh, well, that's because I figure a lot of it is my show is kind of geared toward people who really don't know a lot about podcasts. And I know there are certain people that still, if I tell them I have a podcast, they're like, well, what is that? So
Hmm.
you have to kind of explain it to them. So by having different types of podcasters who do different types of shows, I can kind of introduce that to the listeners. And I also do a section of the show called Sherpa Suggestions. So it's like, well, if you like this show about the paranormal, here's a couple more shows that you can check out about the paranormal.
Mm,
So it's just
okay.
anything to garner interest.
Nice. That's a really clever idea.
I try. So it's, the whole thing, Mount Podcastia, because that's what I call the sea of podcasts. It's just like a big mountain of it. A
Yeah.
sea of it is a mountain of it. That makes perfect sense.
Right, right. I get what you're saying though. You're here to navigate the new listener through the chaos that is the podcast world.
Absolutely. And even not just new listeners too. I mean, people who sometimes if they want to listen to something else, kind of expand their plate a little bit, that'll help them too.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, admittedly, there's so many out there that I've only ever scratched the surface of it. So, that's really nice to have a show like yours, which helps explain things a little better and kind of gives you those little nuggets like, ooh, that was really nice. I want to hear that one again.
Yes, thank you. And because we really kind of do this that kind of that line that's crossed where we both interview people who are celebrities and actors and writers and stuff like that, because those are people who have stories to tell. And with podcasting, you're just listening, so you want somebody with a really good story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You got to have something good to listen to, or else you wouldn't listen to it. I absolutely
Absolutely.
agree. Yeah. When you were setting all of this up and trying to figure out how much time to devote to it and what parts of your life this was going to consume, did you have a lot of support with that, or was this just you kind of going, well, I'm doing it and everybody's just going to have to like it?
I like the way you put that. Um, I really just kind of work it at night because there's a day job that we don't talk about.
Right, right.
So this is me, passing my time with my night, speaking to strangers from all around the world and making friends out of them.
There you go. So yeah, in a roundabout way, you've just kind of plugged it into your life and in just the right time.
That's true, especially times like this. Everybody's cooped up. This is recorded during the Corona epidemic, folks, and this is a good time for podcasts because where else are you going to go, right? At least there's something to pop on your earphones and check something out and learn something new.
Yeah. Do you have a particular podcast that you personally like to listen to?
Um, I have on my podcast app, I have like 20 podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
including my own, because I have to listen to like, did that sound good? Did that not sound good? Do I have to fix things? But they're pretty wide range. I enjoy Stuff You Should Know because it really covers a wide range of topics too. It's
Okay.
Josh Clark and Chuck Bryant, and they're really funny, and they do like an hour-long show and on just about anything under the sun so far. They've been doing it for about 11 or 12 years. So I think they've got it down at this point.
Yeah, yeah. They found the magic formula.
Yeah, and even some of the ones that have like celebrities and comedians on it is good. I enjoy Gilbert Gottfried because him and his co-host, they're big fans of like the older movies and TV shows from like the 70s and the 60s and even the 80s, and they have a lot of people on their show, from that era. Even and not just actors, just writers and producers, musicians. So you get a good variety there, and of course it's Gilbert Gottfried, so he's going to be silly.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And how do you pick what shows? I mean, you had talked about the suggestions, but how do you personally pick what comes on your show?
Oh, for what goes on my show?
Yeah.
Sometimes, there are people that are online and they want to promote their stuff, and I wonder like, well, what is their show about? And I'll check it out. I'll say if this is a good show, this is an exciting show that people are going to want to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend it. I mean, I would never want to do a show that was really negative and
Right.
just nasty to people and stuff like that. That's not what I'm about. And I don't like getting too political. And I might one day have a person who does a political show, but I wouldn't want to argue politics with them on my show. It wouldn't fit. I'm pretty apolitical, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. I like it.
Thank
And
you.
when you were coming up with like kind of talking about the the magic formula that I just brought up, when talking about your show, um, how did you come up with like, oh, this is the time length I want to do? The little details like that. How do you decide what microphone to use and things like that?
Like I said, my setup is really organic. It's nothing highly professional. I mean, oh, big shock there. Uh, and I just asked some people there. There's a podcaster that I know. His name is Casey Gonzalez, who actually he's a chef, but he's a musician also, so he knows a lot about audio equipment. And he has a Facebook page, and he has like lessons on how to use certain kinds of software, and he recommends certain mics that you could use. And I said, okay, well, that looks good. As far as like the length of the show, sometimes it just depends on the guest. There are people that I can have on, and they can talk for days, and uh, and sometimes that's good as long as it's a great story and it's not too egotistical,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something like you put yourself in the place of the listener. I'm sure you do that too. You probably had interviews where you're like, is this good enough to play? You know, you
I'm
you
not going to
question
say
it.
one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple of shows that I've recorded and I just said, nope, this isn't going to work.
Gotcha.
And, but, for the most part, like I said, the people that I meet, they want to put their best foot forward. So they're going to be engaging. They're not going to be like, yes, no, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Those are those like, well, I can smell the delete button coming up right now.
That's great. Do you also put your stuff on any other platforms like YouTube or things like that, or do you keep them solely to the podcasting platforms?
Oh yeah, well, I've I tell people I have a face for podcasting, so it's pretty much just an audio thing. I've made YouTube videos, out of some of the little programs that you could get online and stuff like that, and they're always a little goofy. But I don't really promote it too heavily with video, but I do keep an Instagram account, just you know, but that's mostly like still pictures and everything like that, just to get people interested.
Mm-hmm. Which that makes sense. Yeah. How do you go about promoting your podcast?
Yeah, a lot of it is social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Sherpolution, and a lot of it is word of mouth too. I don't go too crazy with it, but it's really the show's only a year old, and like I said, because I'm taking on more and it's growing, which is good, which is what I want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It has to kind of take a life of its own after a while.
Right.
But yeah, just the social media, and then sometimes you catch on to other people who have shows and they're trying to build up their audience, so you're trading off. Like you promote them, they promote you, and one hand washes the other, and you're introducing your show to a whole new audience again.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's kind of what we got going on.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're going to be on my show too.
Right.
Promotion.
Promotion. Now, do you like script your show or do you go completely freeform?
When I first started, I wrote everything down, and then I found by like the sixth or seventh episode, I think if people who've been listening from the beginning, they probably know this. I felt like I was just worrying about getting to the next question, and I wasn't really responding as much to the person's answer. So
Mm.
now I just tell people, look, it's a conversation. It's not an interrogation. Just come on here and we'll have fun. And if you go off on a tangent, I don't care. Yeah, we'll just talk and be silly, and that happens sometimes, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, you kind of talked a little bit before about hitting the delete button and things like that, or getting ready to hit the delete button and things. And you've also said that you've had guests on the show. Have you ever had a guest that was just so off the wall crazy that you're like, okay, yeah, this is like, what was your craziest guest?
Craziest guess. Wow, that's a good question. No one was too like off the wall. I don't think there was anyone to that point where I had to say, okay, you got to dial it back a little bit,
Okay.
because I guess because a lot of them are podcasters, and like I said, they want to put their best foot forward. If they come across as too crazy, people aren't going to want to listen to their show. So they got
Yeah.
to make their point. Um, there's a lady that I know who doesn't live too far away from me, and her name is Dr. Lindsay Callan Weisner, and she's a psychologist, and she deals with suicidal and depressed people. But she's got this great show, and she's like if Mrs. Maisel had a PhD. Basically that's basically her show. Just a lightning fast wit, and and a really super nice person too. And she was just making me laugh the entire time because I don't really have cursing on my show, and she was trying so hard not to curse, and she kept reminding me of that during the course of the interview.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. uh, what do you like? How to word this? How do you prepare for a recording session?
Um,
Like
there's
you
not
just
a lot of there's not a lot of heavy prep on my part. Like I said, because it's more conversational. I don't write. I will write down questions if I know it's going to be like a lengthy or detailed topic, or if maybe this person has just so many elements to their life that like I really want to kind of remind myself, talk about this, talk about this, talk about this.
Mhm.
And then maybe like I'll look up if there are articles about the person or interviews, or if they have an IMDb page, if they have, if they have music out, anything that gives me a little bit of, you can't go in ice cold. I've
Yeah.
done it, but it's not really advisable. You really gotta have some sort of a direction.
Okay. And do you do like more research beyond just listening to the snippet or the podcast of your guest? Do you like, Google them and things like that, stalk their Facebook?
Sometimes I will, yeah, because when you do that extra research, you might have an understanding as to like, well, why do they make a joke about this all the time? Then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
understand the reference behind it. So then at least you can kind of be in tune with them when you're talking to them.
All right. That's a fair answer. Do you ever go back and listen to your older episodes?
Um, Sometimes, not very often. Usually I will listen to them when they come out. So I just want to be sure that everything is working all right. I had like one interview that I did recently with a producer, and 7 minutes of the interview, the last 7 minutes of the interview got cut out, and I didn't cut him out. So
Oh
fortunately, I still
no.
had the files, and I was able to just go back into the app and replace it and repair it, and and it was only after a day, so there was really no damage done. So I he was such a nice guest that I really wanted to kind of give him that respect of letting people hear what he thought. At the end, he was giving advice about the movie world and stuff like that, and it was really good. It was really deep. I felt bad that because I was like, well, wait a minute, what happened to this part when he says this and this and this, and then fortunately, I still had the file on my computer.
Okay. Well, kind of to dig into your experience, I guess is what I would call it, or perhaps your knowledge base. And of course, this would be, uh, I feel a little biased kind of thing. More obviously, this is going to be your opinions, but
Okay.
so when somebody is designing a podcast, and a lot of times people say just go for what feels right and things like that, but regarding things like swearing, do you think that swearing and those negative kind of podcasts where, they're talking rumors and gossip and things like that, do you feel like that affects their numbers?
I think there's an audience for everything. And, just because I don't agree with it, that doesn't make it right or wrong. I mean, I'm not a guy with a million listens,
Mm-hmm.
so I can't be the, supreme advice giver on this. You know, you got to do what works for you. You got to be true to yourself. I had said something, I had a conversation with a guy from the beginning of my second season, and we were talking about this. As a matter of fact, it's funny that you brought it up. And I said, there's guys that do these shows and they're just cursing. They're not being clever. If they're being clever or funny and they curse, I can live with that because that's like, comedians do that. and
Right.
and it works. But if you're just sitting there and just telling like really gross stories and cursing, and it's not really it's coming over as funny, just disgusting or obnoxious, to me that doesn't work. And he said to me, he said, you know what, they're probably just trying to be Joe Rogan. And I said, I never
Oh.
looked at it that way. Because they probably hear something and they emulate it too much and they don't really put their own self into it.
I gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I've always said to people that I don't want to be the smartest person on the show. I would rather be here asking person questions so that I learn from them. If I make someone look stupid, then that doesn't look good on me. But if I'm interested in what they have to say and I can, absorb something out of that, that's beneficial to everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. Um, what is one of your like? Okay, let me start by asking this one. Have you ever had a scenario where you start listening to a podcast thinking, okay, I'm gonna possibly have these people on the show, and you start listening to the podcast and you immediately have to turn it off?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And, I'm not asking for names or anything
No.
like that, just very generic. What sort of things drive you to do that?
This is so funny. There's an app called Anchor,
Mm-hmm.
and when other podcasters like your show, you get a little message that says, "Oh, this person favorited your podcast."
Right.
So I had gotten a notification that someone had favorited my podcast, and I said, "Oh, maybe I'll have this person on." I was looking for guests at the time, and I started their podcast, and it was just this heavy rap song starting right at the very beginning of the show. It was like, and then just all this string of cursing before the show even started, and I was like, next.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I can totally relate to that. I think nothing detracts more than when the intro comes on and it's just this super loud, unbalanced music that tries to blow out my speakers.
That's right.
So I can relate to that. That's great. That shows that, like you were saying, there is a market for everybody, and in your particular neck of the woods, that's just not for you.
Right.
And I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I used to radio DJ in when I was in college, and when you're doing that kind of stuff, it's different. The music is part of your show. This you want to make everything sound smooth and mix all the music. I always like had a great mix of stuff. I played all sorts of things. This is like in the 80s and the 90s, and I was really into like a lot of pop stuff and new wave stuff, but I still like rock and
mm-hmm.
other things too. Just all throw it all together. And my friend and I did a radio show together, and we would just be really goofy and stuff. We had a format, but that works for that. That for a podcast, I don't know. I don't know if it would go over as well.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, podcast is recorded.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like radio is more towards the live.
Right.
So I gotcha. I smell what you're stepping in. So as things kind of wind down here, I would like to open up the floor to you so you can let the listeners know where they can find you on the different social medias, so they can click and follow and all that good stuff.
Sure. I do this on my show too, and we call it shameless self promotion.
Yep.
And it's followed by a song too that my voiceover guy Bruce created.
Nice.
I'll have to use it for your episode now. So here's my shameless self promotion. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the Twits at Sherpalution, SHERPALUTION. And I have a website, sherpalution.com, and all the shows are listed there. And what I call the Sherpa sheets, which are the show notes that contain all the links and the listings of the shows to check out from the Sherpa suggestions. And sometimes a lot of the things have my thoughts on the appearance of the guest and everything like that. Never anything nasty, always nice. And also I started including Spotify playlists. For if people just want to just groove to a playlist, I made one with love songs. I launched that for Valentine's Day. I did one for classic rock. I did one for the holidays. So I figured if people just go to the website and they just want to hear music, they can do that too.
Cool.
I'm pretty much available on all the platforms. It's Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. It's all there. You just look for Too Many Podcasts with the exclamation point.
Okay.
That was my computer talking back to me. I'm sorry if that came out.
I'm
Quiet,
not
computer.
sure. I didn't hear it, so I don't know.
Okay, good. I'm glad. But yeah, that's me. I also had another little podcast. I did a couple of episodes. It didn't really launch too well, but if people want to check it out, I don't know if I'll revive it or not. I may actually do another project later on.
Cool.
It's called The Expert Factory, and it's people that are coming on and giving you life advice. And I just kind of stick my voice at the beginning and the end of it, and I stay quiet the rest of it.
Nice. I like it. That's a good premise.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Jim. It's been a blast talking to you. You're a really awesome guy, and your show's definitely something that people need to check out. So thank you very, very much for joining me tonight.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ray. And viva la Sherpolution Rebels.
There's some more of that shameless self-promotion.
There you go.
And thank you to all the listeners who tuned in to check this out. Make sure to go to all of Jim's social medias and click and like and do all the bells and whistles and all that good stuff. Because without you guys, we wouldn't do what we do.
Listen to this show, too.
Yeah. I mean, keep on listening. We like it. But thank you all for coming, and we'll see you all next time. Oh, now that was an awesome interview. Thanks so much for listening. You all are so great. And don't forget to head to Facebook, Insta, and Twitter and follow The Leo Effects. If you want to hear some comedy and ridiculous voices, check out Shattered Dungeons on YouTube and all other places podcasts can be heard. And you'll hear me voicing crazy characters, usually pretty terribly. So thank you so much. You all are the absolute best. And we will see you all on the next episode.